Early on the morning of November 26, 1997, a physician by the name of Margo Prade drove her van into the parking lot of a medical center called Professional Center West. It was a routine that Dr. Prade had been following for almost 11 years now. But today would be different. She would never get out of her car. Co-worker Lori Collins, out for a cigarette, was the first person to find her body.
I saw Dr. Prade hunched over to the passenger side. Her white lab jacket was all bloody. I was yelling at her, wanting her to get up. She didn't. I felt for a pulse and she didn't have one. And she was not moving.
When detectives from the Akron Police Department arrived at the crime scene, they quickly realized that the murder of Dr. Margo Prade was not a random killing.
She was resting with her head on the passenger seat. Her cell phone was within reach of her hand. She could see it, she could call for help.
Her purse was there. The contents of her purse apparently had not been rifled. And she apparently had been shot from the right side, which would indicate to us that she unlocked the door for whoever was in the van.
As the body was being prepared for autopsy by the medical examiner, it quickly became apparent to detectives how Margo Prade was killed.
Every time that we took off a layer of clothing, another bullet fell out. We got right down to her bra and panties before we found out, there was still another one in her bra. I hadn't realized that she'd been shot that many times.
Margo Prade had actually been shot 6 times at close range with a .38 caliber pistol. But the most notable aspect of the homicide was the mark found on her arm. The killer had apparently struggled with Dr. Prade and had bitten her so viciously that the bite had gone through her lab coat. But what the police could not understand was why there was just the impression of half a bite mark. The funeral of Margo Prade brought out literally hundreds of people. Not only friends and relatives, but many of the people she so lovingly cared for.
That happened to Dr. Margo Prade. That could happen to you. That could happen to me. That could happen to anybody.
She was so well loved that there was a strong community sentiment that her killer must be found. Margo Prade's death cried out for justice.
The media began to put tremendous pressure on authorities to solve this brutal murder. Even Margo's ex-husband, Captain Douglas Prade, a highly decorated police officer, volunteered to take a lie detector test, which he passed, and was then immediately dismissed as a suspect.
Police department's doing an outstanding job. They're using all of their resources to investigate this, including resources of the federal government, so I feel very confident that they'll reach a resolution of the situation soon.
Police then received an anonymous letter about an acquaintance of Margo Prade's named Delphinia Gilbert.
Someone had written letters to the FBI and also to Doug Prade implicating me in this murder, saying that I was someone that knew Dr. Prade. I pretended to be her friend, but I hated her.
Flyers were circulated around town saying that Delphinia Gilbert had already been arrested for murder. This forced the Gilberts to defend themselves in the press. But the police still had only one real clue to the killer's identity, and that was the bite mark on Margo Prade's arm. The only thing they could do was to take dental impressions from everyone close to Margo Prade.
Everybody has a set of teeth which are unique and individual to that particular person, and certain substances can capture those unique and individual characteristics with great fidelity. What I did was I took each dental cast and made a bite mark in wax to compare with the bite mark on the arm of Mrs. Prade. I went through each of them and was able to exclude all of them with the exception of Mr. Prade.
Dr. Levine found that the imprint pattern of Doug Prade's lower teeth matched the bite mark left on the blood-stained lab coat, as well as on the victim's arm.
What I basically told the police was only one of the models could have left the mark, and that belonged to Douglas Prade.
On September 1st, 1998, Captain Douglas Prade went on trial for the murder of his ex-wife.
Douglas, did you kill Margo Prade?
No, I did not. I did not.
Not only did Doug Prade deny that he had killed his wife, but his lawyer tried to demonstrate that he couldn't have bitten anyone because his upper teeth were false, and therefore he lacked the strength to leave a bite mark through her clothing. It was ironic that the very thing the defense tried to use to help their client only served to answer the question as to why there was only half a bite mark on his wife's body. It was obvious that the bite mark was created by Doug Prade's lower teeth. The jury found the bite mark evidence compelling, and Douglas Prade was convicted of murder and was sentenced to life in prison.
We determined that he had been obsessed with his wife, and I think he felt like he created her. He created this prominent doctor who was extremely popular and extremely successful. And I don't think he could tolerate the fact that she was getting rid of him.